Good evening and welcome to Carol Weston and the Boston School, the final event in a series of conversations we've hosted this year celebrating pioneering Boston women poets and the large and embracing radius of their creative activity. This event is, of course, intended to document the life and mind of a singular poet, but it is also an exploration of the constellations of writers, artists, and friends that accrue around remarkable individuals like Carol Weston. And these constellations, in turn, shine a light on the social and cultural forces, concerns, and questions of their respective space and time. Although with Carol, I'd hardly limit her to this dimension. In a recent poem, which I hope she'll share tonight, she declares herself, quote, minister of the interior in charge of earth and outer space. And in another Fluxus-style postcard, she recounts her own experience of the Boston Marathon as taking place in April 1979, when during a trip to Hopkinton, Mass., aka the starting point of the race, she began sitting her, quote, 10.5-hour meditation. Before I turn you over to our amazing group of guests to begin a meditation on all things Carol, I wanted to say a brief word about tonight's subtitle. So, there's a story that when John Wieners, a longtime acquaintance of Carol's, was asked, "What school do you belong to, John?" he answered without hesitation, "Boston." In some ways, of course, it was a joke and a kind of FU against institutional elitism, as if to say, my education is life, and I am not contained by any one school of thought. But there's also a high seriousness to his reply, one that inspires speculation. And when I began to think of tonight's event, I found unexpected resonances. What if, by saying Boston, one means a constellation of beings who place themselves in a state of continuous learning, questioning, and attending, as Carol herself does with her consummate transcriptions of lectures and events and her preternatural attentiveness? What if Boston, from Botolph, the English saint of farmers and of travelers, of those who stay and those who stray, is itself a kind of school, one that incurs no debt and requires no renaissance? Maybe there's something in the airwaves here, transmitting and enduring transcendentalism, a wind blowing in from Concord and the mediums of Salem, a mash of intellection and pantheism, of folk music revivals and failed but still generative phalanxes, theosophical gatherings, pub crawls, occult collectives, metaphysical clubs, and yes, magic evenings. Jack Spicer, who passed through town in the 50s, once compared poets to radios, mediums, and receivers. The poet, he says, takes too many messages. I think tonight we'll be grateful that they do. Carol Weston, our guest tonight, is a receiver of the highest kind, a guest who brings the hospitality and who is streaming with meanings. Please join me in welcoming her and our amazing moderator tonight, poet, professor, musician, and documentary filmmaker, John Mulrooney.
Thank you very much. I hope I can fill all of those shoes. It's an honor to be moderating this panel with this great, fantastic group. I was talking to a friend of mine about this event yesterday, and I was telling her who Carol was, and after I said a little bit of some of what Christina just said, this person said, "Oh, it sounds like she's in the inner circle." And I thought to myself, maybe there's something about the way we conceive of Boston and the way that we're questioning this here or interrogating this. It's not so much an inner circle as Boston's a series of concentric circles. And Carol is somebody who passes through all of those different places. The cultural historian Martin Green wrote a book that came out in 1966, which would have been about the time that Carol was interacting with Robert Lowell and John Wieners, right, at the same time. And the book is called The Problem of Boston. And it traces Boston's identity problems going back to the 19th century. But he really could have been speaking about his own moment when he writes, "The name Boston is something of a joke. At the lowbrow level, as the home to the puritanical blue laws, the Boston Be Green. Intermediately, the home of a queer, dowdy class consciousness, the proper Bostonians, and for serious readers, as the home of a genteel tradition in American literature, the fireside poets and the schoolroom poets. I think that Carol Weston might have left Martin Green in the dust had he tried to read the city through her trajectory. It's only a couple of miles from Boston University to Beacon Hill, but the journey that Carol took from her classes with Lowell to the Magic Evenings that Stephen Jonas hosted in his apartment near the Massachusetts State House spanned the length and breadth of American poetry. Carol has energized the New England poetry community with her presence and poems for more than 5 decades. She was born in Brookline. She studied at Bennington College and at Boston University. Although she has lived in Greater Boston for most of her life, she did spend time in New York, where she worked in occupational therapy at Pilgrim State Hospital, and Colorado, where she befriended Stan and Jane Brockage while they were at work on the Dog Star Man cycle, the films that they made. It was through the Bread Loaf Writers' Conference that she began her association with the British poet George Barker. And she was one of very few women who attended the Jonas' Magic Evenings, legendary but loose gatherings for the study of occult poetics that included Jonas, John Wieners, Joe Dunn, Jack Spicer, and many others. She's one of the longest continuous participants in the Stone Soup poetry group that was initiated by Jack Powers, who a long time ago, Jim. Yeah, it's been at least since the 70s. And Jack Powers brought out a collection of Carol's spirals, whorls, sutures, and septa in 1978. It now continues under the guidance of Chad Parento. Carol has eschewed careerism, making of herself a steadfast iconoclast whose generosity of spirit has for 5 decades allowed her to intersect with poetry movements and communities that too rarely intersect with each other. She is the living memory and connective tissue of the last half-century of American poetry. Her work is infused with the spirit of shamanism, a declarative witness that conjures unadorned essentials. Her readings are enactments of the ethereal, that fit well with today's performance poetry, but also harken back to our earliest oral traditions. It is electrifying to be in the room when Carol reads, even in the Zoom room. And those who have attended these performances, which have taken place at our most august institutions, as well as in some of our best dive bars, are in the presence of something otherworldly that helps us navigate this world. Carol is a medium. And while her mediumship suggests an almost supernatural sense, which is something I think we might get into this evening, I think we will also discover her as a medium between natural forces, the many poetries of Boston, their establishments, their bickerings, and their baggage. It has been over the past few years my good fortune to be filming Carol. I've been documenting her readings. I used to be an organizer for the Boston Poetry Marathon, and Carol was a regular there, and I saw her, and I was like, I think there needs to be more film of this remarkable poet, and it's been my pleasure to do that. What we're going to do now is I'll share a few minutes of some of that footage that I've been gathering. And we might go from that to start a conversation with Carol and then include these other really great folks here. We've got, to my left, Fanny Howe is an award-winning poet, novelist, filmmaker based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Most recent book is Manimal Woe from Aerosmith, and I suggest you pick that up. Joe Torra, who is joining us on Zoom, he's a writer, he's a professor at UMass Boston. His latest work is the memoir, Who Do You Think You Are? Reflections of a Writer's Life. Jim Dunn is a poet. He's based in Beverly, Massachusetts. He's the author of The Silence is a Junkyard, which is just minutes old, right? And Soft Launch from Bootstrap Productions, among other collections. Amanda Cook, who is a poet and teacher at the Gloucester Writers Center. She is the author of Ironstone Whirligig, which everyone should get a copy of, also from Bootstrap, and the forthcoming Letter to Maximus. I think with that we'll go to the video, and that will take us, and we'll respond. We'll pick up on the other side of that.
Oh, here's one line. But up against the headache of his God he walked. Yeah, but the poem is missing. And now this one. Into my inward turning mirror mind, with dark reflecting dark, someone came and placed a candle. So that one came out of my mind. Leonardo. Who condemned me to see, with my hands in the thick of my beard, answers everywhere? Air is to be mounted, sun is to be looked upon, veins of a leaf burn my brain with questions and answers. Not a stone of the road can do, is free of messages, and not a nose of a single face can pass me without the anguish of my consciousness following it. So my, if I can a little bit post is my essay, The Poet Expects of Himself, was read by Garrett Lansing when he'd never met me, and Steve Jonas gave it to him. And someone said, it was an 8-hour discussion, I can't believe it, in the night, and about this poem. And then he wrote a review that you might receive someday. And he wrote a review, and it was in a little tiny newspaper, the Tufts Weekly. And that's where that review was. And when I read the review, I was house sitting in the most elegant house in Cambridge, I imagine, on Brattle Street. And I was house sitting for the dog and the plants and my poetry teacher, Margot Smith. And so fortunately, I was in the cellar when I received that article. Oh, I started to dance. And I would have tipped over one of those 6-foot or 5-foot vases from the Orient if I'd been upstairs. I would have knocked something over. I just want to say, a song for a soul cake, a song for a soul. Please give us a soul cake for a song for a soul. And that's an old Halloween chant. Yeah. Okay, so Tom Daly gave this assignment about, I don't know what it was, about aging. And so, anyway, so this is my poem, October 1st. Inside an aging mortal's skin. It's strange to live inside an aging mortal's skin. I am arthritic. Come over here and listen to my bones. How can I stand up straight enough to wrap my arms around the 100 million mile diameter of the sun? Now, excuse me, this pile of papers of exultant consciousness has turned to poison on the floor. I have nowhere to step. I gnaw on wood and spit. When winter comes, I bite the ice. Still I whistle and I sing. My heart is full of love for every stone and flower and spoon and every face on earth.
Okay, and Welcome back. Hello, Carol.
Oh.
Yes. We're here to celebrate you. I wanted to mention also that, as I said, we'll go around to this group of panelists, and then we'll open it up to questions from the folks on Zoom. And stories as well, anything that you might have that might augment any of the things that we talk about. But also we'll be concluding the whole program with a reading from Carol. So there's all kinds of good things to look forward to. But I thought we'd start with, in that little video clip there, you tell the story about how when Garrett Lansing, the poet who's from Gloucester, who's intersected with so many different poets throughout his long life, wrote a review of your essay that, how delighted you were, right? You hadn't met him yet, right? But he had been shown it by Steve Jonas, and how did you come to share it with him, and how had you come to meet him, and so forth?
Oh, well, I was having dinner with our friend Bob Tips, Robert Lee Tips, and let's see. Oh, Robert Lee Tips played the piano for Robert Duncan, somewhere in the country. Anyway, so he was a pianist. Anyway, so. And at dinner was John Broderick. And he stood up and said, "Excuse me, I have to leave to go to a magic meeting." Well, I said, "May I come too?" And my life changed from there on. Anyway, so I got to the magic meeting in Boston, and Steve Jonas was obviously in his bathtub in the back of the wall, splashing around, and then he came out perspiring. But not only perspiring, he was radiating. And then he'd open his poems, and he'd read one, and then he'd roar with laughter. I said, "Oh, this is the strangest man." And one poem after the other was filled with joy as he roared with laughter through his poems. So that's how I met Steve Jonas. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And you were at the same time, like that was 1965?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was when I came back from Colorado. Yeah.
Okay, and how long had you been in Colorado?
A year and 9 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you? You've been a student of many people, including George Barker, right? And I think Robert Lowell. When were you in classes with Lowell?
Oh, well, I made the worst mistake in my life. Okay, when I left Bennington. Okay, that was the worst thing I ever did in my life, and may God forgive me. But anyway, so when I got to BU, a professor said, "You clods wouldn't know," which he shouldn't say. But anyway, he said, "You clods," he said, addressing us, "you wouldn't know, but I'm having lunch today with Robert Lowell, and we're considering having him come to BU." So I was a clod who did know. Because I had Oscar's book, Immortal Poems of the, Oscar Williams edited it, Immortal Poems of the English Language. So I knew who Robert Lowell was.
And was it actually through Oscar Williams that you went to Breadloaf?
Oh, how did I happen to go to? Oh, I was. No, this is what I say. Chance is the largest part of our lives. I was standing in line. Oh, yes, I had left BU, but they were kind enough to let me, or they never interfered with my coming back to see Lowell. So on Tuesdays or whatever it was, I was standing in line waiting. Usually there was only me. I mean, nobody came. Anyway, Um, so I looked behind me. I never look at a bulletin board. I looked behind me, and it said something called bread loaf. And I said, my God, I have to do that. And yeah, that's why I went. And but it's all chance. Might not have looked behind me, and I never looked at that bulletin board. Anyway, yeah. So I was in line for Lowell, who kindly saw me, even though I was failing at the Boston School of Occupational Therapy at the time.
So you went, and it was at Breadloaf that you interacted with George Barker, right?
Yes,
Right.
he was my advisor, and I thought I was getting Theodore Ruski, and Theodore Ruski got sick, and but because Oscar's anthologies, and this one doesn't, but have photographs of the poets.
In the little circle.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it is extremely important to have photographs of the poets. Anyway, so that's how I knew what I was getting, sort of.
Well, and speaking of which, I think you're absolutely correct, Carol, that it is always important to have photographs of the poets. I may, from time to time, share some screenshots of some of the folks that we're going to be talking about this evening.
Yeah.
There is George Barker. It was this is probably a few years before you met him, right?
Oh, many years. He looks 23, like the year that was the age that William Butler Yeats said, "The young poet that interests me is George Barker."
Uh-huh.
And then he anthologized him.
Right. And I wanted to actually come back to Steve Jonas a little bit, because I know Joe is out there, and we have now really Jonas available to us because of the work of Torra, who's on the call. So I don't know if he wants to. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And I don't know if Joe has anything he wants to sort of add in here about what he knew researching the Magic Evenings. And I think there's probably other people in the call who may come back to this later. But Joey?
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about that when I spoke, but I think Carol and I had already met previous, but I think it was when I started my Jonas work that I got to know Carol better. And that was because of she was around and she knew Steve, and she had actually not only gone to the Magic Evenings, but she was one of the few women that was part of the Magic Evenings. I think it was a very male scene. And Carol wrote some beautiful essay for Let the Bucket Down, which I actually was first published in the Lift Jonas issue when I reprinted and Let the Bucket Down a few years ago on Steve, called Steve, Where Are You? And it's a beautiful essay about with many marvelous memories, including running around Boston and putting her hand after Steve died on different doors, front doors where Steve had lived at various addresses, and that really got to me. She also did a wonderful interview with Joe Dunn, who we should talk a little bit about too, who was on the scene back in the mid-50s when you could really say there might have been a Boston school for a short amount of time with Spicer and Blazer and Wieners and Jonas and Ed Marshall. And she did a great interview with Joe Dunn, and she put me in touch, I think, with Joe Dunn, or maybe Garrett did. But so Steve was certainly a connection for me, and Carol had so many great things to share with me when I started doing my Jonas work, which was half my life, I think, I spent on Jonas. But Carol was one of those people that I always went back to. She was a great source.
Sorry. I'm just so curious about, it's been mentioned twice that, Carol, that you were one of the few women in a lot of these different scenarios, the Magic Evenings, And actually, you were saying you were one of the few people in line to see Robert Lowell. I was just curious what it was like to be a woman in these contexts, especially among Stephen Jonas and John Wieners, et cetera.
Oh, I was very shy. I looked at the floor. There was a lot of dirt on the rug. And
How do you think you integrated, into these settings?
well, I was in heaven. And then when they stopped for years, I would go every Sunday. And this eye would come to the door to prevent me from coming in. And I would come to the door, and that was, I think, Joe Dunn. But he didn't speak to me. And every Sunday, I would be out there waiting for the meeting. And then the meeting started again, you see. I was taken by those meetings, obviously. I mean, my life was changed. And yeah, sometime I'll try to go over that.
Now would be nice.
Oh,
Yeah. Please.
Oh, God.
What were the meetings?
Yeah.
They were the magic meetings. And let me see. Just why were they magic? Somebody here.
They were called Magic Evenings, not meetings. The Magic Evenings.
Magic evenings.
Yes.
December 14, 1969, 24 Lawrence Street in Beacon Hill. This is from Joe Torra's magazine. Next to the last Magic Evening, you told us that the origins of the theater are in the Commedia dell'arte, Harlequin, Columbine, Pierrot, and Pierrette. And someone brought up the medieval passion plays, Greek tragedy, Goat Song, and the chorus that had its origin in the religious rites of the people. But how did the Greeks perfect theater without any previous history to it, someone asked. They did, was your reply. The Egyptians didn't have any theater that I've heard of. Joe Dunn said at Black Mountain, Duncan once read aloud the Bacchae. Both you and Joe began to talk at once about how all the women of the city were gone out on certain nights, and you said it was, Steve, said it was the deity who came from the east to visit them. The Bacchic lights were like a witch's Sabbath, said Joe. Okay. Yeah. So that's my only reality that I can explain what magic evenings were, because I was always so scared. And that's just my natural temperament.
It's amazing. I think we all wish we were able to experience that. But maybe to go back to that question about the status of being the lone woman in so many of these rooms. I don't know if you have anything, Fanny, to add about that, what that kind of experience is, and not just these different, all of the different schools that you traverse, Carol, are very male dominated, right, and had been.
Oh. No, I never noticed.
Yeah. You know.
Well, I think you adapt. And then you don't notice it anymore because you've figured out how to exist and how to shine your light in that. You just adapt to it.
Right. And there may not have been some of the same language for how we talk about it.
Right. No, it was totally very different.
Jim, I'm sort of, thinking you've done so much work on Wieners, and so much about like the area, things around Jonas and the Magic Evenings and poetry in Boston at that time.
Yeah, I think, Carol and I talked several times about that, and the person that keeps coming up is Joe Dunn, and I was lucky enough to meet Joe with Carol at Stone Soup when he came back that time, and then I went up with, he was working as a waiter up in Newburyport, and I went up with, and Jack Powers would go up and visit him, so Joe Dunn is a very important person that I think that through Carol I got to know, and we share the same last name. And people always think that I'm related to Joe Dunn, and I wish I was, so I through my affiliation with John, and I met John the same day I met you at Stone Soup, probably in 1994.
Oh.
And Garrett too. Garrett was a very magical person to know and to be a great friend. And the crazy thing I was to say earlier, but I wanted to cut in, was that Garrett years ago gave me the actual what the poet expects of himself. Oh. And I did notice that you use male pronouns, and I think she uses female pronouns, what the poet expects of herself. So, but I did notice on the other side, I don't know if it exists anywhere else, because Garrett copied his review. And so the review that was mentioned in the movie is right here, and I'll read the part.
Sure.
That Garrett, that was referred to by Carol in the movie. There is in this issue one superb piece of prose which one could term an essay that led by opposing them to these reflections on the general poverty of the concept of literary in most literary magazines. I mean, Carol Weston's 2 pages on what the poet expects of himself, a tremendous statement that should ring in the minds of all hearers, whether poets or not, and that reaches beyond literature, as does Robert Duncan's Ideas of the Meaning of Form, published in Culture magazine, to the center of the action of all men's striving. Along with Daniel Long's now nearly forgotten essay on the whole duty of the poet, it will serve a young poet as a constant reminder of the perpetually fresh necessity to hear and follow that hearing. Miss Weston's questions are addressed to poets. How is it that a voice will rise from the depths of a man with a musical power greater than that of any voice he knows to be his own? Can a man live close to that voice? They are also addressed to all men who struggle to perfect themselves in the fire of their days. Here, Lansing. Here, I want to give that to you.
No wonder I danced.
Because Garrett gave it to
cellar.
me years ago. I don't think that review, that's from the,
Is
yeah,
well,
the
you
Tufts
have a-
Literary Magazine from February 24th, 1967.
Yeah, do you have a?
I'll make a copy. You can keep the original. Yeah, there you go. You don't have it, do you?
Excellent.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
So, and then, well, one of the things, Stone Soup was very important to Carol. It still is. And there was a group of female poets that were very important at that time. That Jack did a great job of giving a platform, which includes Joanna Nealon, Cynthia Mitchell, who became a psychotherapist and a novelist in Paris, and who am I missing? Someone else, Carol. And anyway, it was very important. Carol was featured there with Joanna several times, and both of the poetry was very important to me. The first time I saw Carol read, I thought she was holding an actual live squid at the first reading in a glass case in water. But we talked the other day, and my memory was a little off. It was actually squid eggs, because she had gone earlier to a school and gave a talk on squid eggs. Goes to T.T. the Bears on the stage where the Pixies played their very first show. Gives a beautiful reading, a magical reading, holding squid eggs, and those squid eggs became, full-grown squids. So that's beautiful. So I'll leave it at that. But that's my whirlwind tour of Carol.
Well, and this might be so the essay is likely to come out in the Bootstrap book. You're likely to include it, and I know, Amanda, you've been working with her on that. So I don't know if maybe you'd like to say a few words about that process.
Yeah, well, I think the process is just how to get as much of the magic of Carol into one book as much as possible. We've been working on one of the joys in life is to get a package of letters and poems from Carol. Just the return address, the way it's addressed, everything about them is magical, and so it's been a little tricky over the past few years during the pandemic because we've been trying to be very careful and are just starting to get into the habit of visiting again. But we're working on getting Carol's book, Let Me Lie with Lightning, together to come out in the fall.
Well, what's that?
No, it's wonderful that you're doing that. It's just great.
Well, I would add that a letter from Carol is one of the things that makes the post office my favorite federal agency, because they really are they are magical things.
We were talking earlier that when my kids were small, I would say to Carol, Seamus loves trucks. And then I would get a 12-page poem on trucks. You remember that? I still have it. And or I would say something. Her attention to the children. And on Sundays was when we used to read at the marathon. They were the greatest days because all the New Yorkers would leave and all the people from out of town. And then it would be like the Gloucesterians and Carol and Garrett and Amanda's kids. And the way that Carol was so attentive to the kids. But then she takes whatever that is and always is communicating poetically. And I would get a letter about trucks, and Seamus would be beside himself. So you constantly do that. You're besides John Wieners, you're on the poet. I know that is in constant communication with their muse, and through children. I think you listen. So you're always listening, Carol, and you're always writing down. You're writing down everything.
She's writing down her
Yeah.
moral
So
history.
there you go. So
Yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to talk about is that for years my children read at the Boston Poetry Marathon, and to be honest, the only reason they read was because I told them Carol would be there. That was the thing. Every year they'd say, not this year, I'm not doing it this year. I'm like, well, Carol's going to be there. And so they would come up with poems to read, to be there when Carol was there, and to read them primarily for you. And at one point, Carol and my child Ash had come up with a project to write a book of poems together, and somebody did a very good job finishing their part. Their work is here with the name Carol Weston on it. The other didn't write as many of their poems, but they're great. These were poems for children, but here's one, The Steeple. I have as much right as a steeple to stand tall in a city. I mean, beautiful. and these were addressed to my child. Just here's some poems for you, and what a gift that was and continues to be. I wanted to read a little section of Peacefire, if you don't mind, because I took a picture of it before I left my house, and it's on my phone, and I keep thinking I'm going to lose it on my phone, and then I can put this down. But I was thinking about the importance of the community around you, Carol, and especially of John Galloway. And this little bit of Peacefire that I read this afternoon stuck with me. It does not take time to make miracles. It takes a living body and a soul supported by many hands who did not let it drop. And that just struck me this afternoon as I was thinking about this evening.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful. And speaking of John, who is here with us tonight, John Galloway, the poet and astronomer, I know maybe there was something that he was going to share that had been read at the graveside of Steve Jonas, and maybe if you could read that now, we might come back to you, Joe, after that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, this is written by Carol, a short piece, a description after the graveside burial. It's been with us for many years. The burial was at Mount Hope Cemetery near Forest Hills on February 21st, 1970, about a month after the death of Charles Olson, when Steve called us. Carol writes, emotion baffled everything. Faces themselves were out of focus, miserable, but coming through to the clearing, purged in some way, as if bathed. Garrett Lansing, Raphael de Grotola, Joe Dunn, Scott, Mark Nunnally, and Becky, and 2 Portuguese young men. John and I arrived at the end of a reading by Raphael de Grotola of a letter Steve wrote after Spicer's death. It was bitter cold. Artificial grass, carpets were all around. The casket, which was on boards over the deep ditch in the earth. A great cloth covered a mount of soil waiting to cover the casket. It was a bleak plot of land. No gravestones were around it. Steve was the first grave to be in the new plot. The grass was gray from winter. Bits of ribbon and frozen flowers from other burials were there. When we arrived, there was only a brief moment before everyone went over to their cars. There was something special about the way they gathered together, looking at the photos. Raphael took them out, handsome pictures of Steve in his younger days, on down to childhood. I knew there was a strong bond of love for Steve that held us all together. John and I went back to the casket. I pressed clematis petal from my father's garden on the casket, and I read aloud a poem of Steve's from Domination 58, which I had traced at one of the magic meetings. This is Steve's short poem. That furnace of inborn energies, sealed in heaven, delivered at birth, body, spirit, rectified.
John, thank you so much for that. And before we go to Joe, that was so powerful. But in that piece, you said that you had traced the poem?
I don't know what I meant. I mean, I guess I wrote it as, I can't believe I got it all down. Anyway, so I did.
Okay. Well, someone in the chat had actually asked what book was being read from, which is why I think it's a great time to go to Joe. Right, because it is Let the Bucket Down.
Yes, that is an issue of Let the Bucket Down, and Carol was a contributor not only around Jonas material, but her own poems as well.
And what was Let the Bucket Down, for anyone who might?
Well, Let the Bucket Down was a magazine I did. I had a 5-issue plan, and I burned out after 4. I'm sorry. I did one a year. Actually, Let the Bucket Down, I started when Bill Corbett left the city, and I just kind of felt a little lost, and I wondered what I might do to energize some of the things Bill had done. I was just inspired by Bill, and I wanted to make a magazine that focused on Boston area writing and on out. I just felt this big hole after Bill left, and I thought it was a way to help fill in the hole. So that's what Let the Bucket Down was. That edition, I just want to say, Molly did a beautiful cover of that edition that John just beautifully read from. Thank you, John. John's poems were also, John's a marvelous poet, and his poems were in there too. So, and yeah, speaking of all that in the Boston school, since we're on that, I do just want to say, I don't really believe there's a Boston school. I think what Christina said early on had some validity. There might have been something in the mid-50s when it was such a void here, and you can just imagine that Robin Blazer, Jack Spicer, Wieners, Jonas, Ed Marshall, Joe Dunn, who, by the way, talking about Joe, remember Joe started White Rabbit Press, a pretty formidable thing. He was the first one to do a Jonas book with a cover by Jess, the artist. I think maybe there was something there, but as Joe Dunn once told me, it was really barely a year of these people kind of hanging out together. But so I think we all make our Boston scene. And, I learned from Bill. Bill was really never part of any one school. Bill was all over the place. And Carol's all over the place. And it's one of the great things about her. I met Carol at Word of Mouth. It was at a Robert Duncan Memorial. It was in the late 1980s. I went there with Vincent Farini and Linda Crane, the poet Linda Crane, who I know is a good friend of Carol's. And that's when I met so many people that became part, and Word of Mouth really became a school for me, but I don't think it was a school of that kind of thing. And I remember, Carol, you read, you got up to read, and you started with an anecdote about a trip you made to San Francisco later in Duncan's life, because Garrett had given you contact information, Garrett Lansing, for Duncan, and you said you called Duncan up, and he told you he already had enough friends and didn't need any more, and gave you the cold shoulder. I don't know if you remember that, Carol.
Oh God,
Well,
yes.
I'll never forget it. And that's the first time I met you. And that was, I think, 1989, March of 1989. And I also want to say, Carol, her work has always struck me, and why I love it. And one reason I love Carol is she is a shaman of sorts. There's this kind of someone, John, someone talked about inner circle earlier. She must be from the inner circle, and I wrote outer sphere. I think Carol's the inner circle and the outer sphere. And Carol was everywhere. She was with Lowell, she was with Jonas. And I remember Bill Corbett saying to me, poetry should be about more, Joe, not less. And he certainly had his opinions, but he traveled in a lot of circles and respected a lot of different wide range of writers. And Carol is that way too. And I really admire that. She's not about breaking up into camps, and I've never heard her trash a poet. And gosh, how many of us have heard all too many poets trashing poets? I've done it myself. And I also just want to finish up saying about Carol's work, because I think this is poetry after all. Carol has this great ability to my mind, to get so much into the work, from the infant or the child, that purity, that innocence, to the wise, the sage, the shawoman, excuse me, if you will. And that's an amazing thing to be able to do, and to take these chances, and and you're always in the poem. When I read Carol's work, I never think I'm reading literature. I'm reading these amazing poems that are just so pure, and who knows where they come from. It's not literature. And that's my favorite kind of writing always anyway. So Carol, thank you so much for being here with us. And I wish Steve and John, and I certainly wish Garrett was here, because he would have been with us, and I'm sure really shared his love.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I have to say.
That's
Wow.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you so much, Joe. I think maybe what we're sort of figuring out about Boston School is that if, you know, we have a lot of great poetic resources in Boston, and maybe it's because there is so much that it breaks into camps very easily, right? So it becomes really notable when someone violates those things, and it is a kind of violation to go across schools or camps or however we think about them. And I think that's one of the things that's, you know, Joe, as you mentioned, that I think Bill did and that Carol's been doing for you know, so long, that is really remarkable. And I think one of the other things in a short-lived sense that may have done it, you know, at the Poets Theater in the 50s, there was, you know, Richard Wilbur was working on it, and John Ashbery and Frank O'Hara, and people who might otherwise not you know, get together were all part of that process with the Poets Theater. And Carol, I think you also were connected to the Poets Theater in some small way. You were you're the usher.
Yeah.
Did you not tell me that you were the scaredest usher at the Poets Theater?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Please.
What was I going to say? Oh, God. Well, anyway, it was all very...
You
Oh,
got
that's
scared.
true. I
You
wasn't
got
going to
scared.
tell that. Was it? Should I tell that? Or I don't... Would she like me telling that? No, she wouldn't.
She wouldn't care.
She wouldn't care. Okay. Okay. Well, anyway, so I was the scaredest usher that ever walked the floor. So I said to this lady, "Excuse me, where is your ticket?" And she drew herself up and she said, "I am the head." So I rushed for the Paul Schuster Art Gallery where I could cry and nobody see me before I got back. And God bless her. And anyway, oh dear, I was going to say something, I can't remember. Oh, yeah, so I wrote something called the famous, I might as well say the famous, John, the play that I wrote about the Poets Theatre, the funniest in the world play.
You remember the play from the Poets Theater, John?
Anyway, so I wrote a very famous letter. Okay, so I came in to do my ushering the next week, and they were reading it aloud, and it's been kept in the annals. Oh God, sorry about that.
A play by you?
No. No. I think it's Spanish. Oh, it's the funniest play in the whole world. And yeah, so I wrote about that, and it's the funniest letter in the world if you ever want to see it.
Well, I do hope to sometime. Yes, absolutely. I think we'd all love to see that. That's wonderful. Should we? I haven't been able to follow everything going on in the chat, but should we open up to some questions from the audience?
Sure.
Yeah.
We've already seen a few questions. We could ask people to. I could call on a few people who asked questions earlier. Gloria Monahan has a really good question. Gloria, did you want to unmute, or shall I read your question for you? Okay. So Gloria had asked, can Fanny and Carol, I don't know, did Fanny ever
Well.
Okay. Can Fanny and Carol address the spirit of this so-called idea of the Boston School and the poets Jonas, Wieners, Spicer? I think she's saying Myers. It could be Bernadette Mayer. I'm not sure.
Well, that she wouldn't have.
Bernadette Myers. Bernadette.
And the poets at that time.
Well, one thing is that comes out in Carol is the total engagement with Yeats that was the basis of the Poets' Theatre at the beginning, were Yeats's plays. And I feel you're very Yeatsian.
What do you mean?
There were all these beautiful early Yeats plays that had never been done.
Really?
And they were done at the Poets'
What were their
Theatre.
names?
They were like Lady Cuchulainn Sings the Blues or something like that. I can't remember.
Yeah.
But there were a series of them.
Really?
And the Irish influence was very big in the Poets' Theatre. And I really see that in you, too. Your thinking, the way you think, is very Yeatsian.
Yes.
Oh.
It is.
Oh.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Oh, wow.
And Yeats is somebody who intersects with very much, public elements and I guess what we might think of as the supernatural.
Absolutely.
And the mysticism.
Absolutely.
And there's also, I noticed in Carol, and I wonder if this isn't your connection to, John as an astronomer. While your poems have, for lack of a better word, an approach of the mystical or the supernatural, there's also a lot of numbers. There's a lot of exactness. You gave in the poem, in the clip that we watched earlier, you said that, the 100 million mile diameter of the sun, right? And, getting that sort of exactly correct, right? While also thinking about the way that those things are mystically and can be invoked in us.
Carol, I saw you a lot with John, but how did you meet John, and what was your first experience with John Wieners? Can you talk about that?
Oh, John Wieners.
Yeah.
I don't know. We were supposed to meet together once, and he said he didn't come, and he said that he was there. We had a confusing relationship, but we read together at the City Hall, and that was Jack put us together, and so the audience came for him. They knew him, and everybody was stepping over me. I had my poems all over the bathroom floor, and so that was the way I met my public. And but anyway, I was trying to organize my poems, but he was much worse. He had some book that he held upside down and mumbled. And my mother said, "Who was that crazy man?"
Was Allen Ginsberg there too at that reading?
Oh God, no. He was at the Charles Street Universalist Church reading, and he was on my right, and we were reading the poems of Steve Jonas that had been brought forth by Raphael de Gruyter, who is now in Natick, and he is and try to read something by Raphael de Gruyter about Steve, because he knows Steve longer than anyone else I know of, and from the time he was in the service, and anyway, so his knowledge.
Raphael is not well these days, because John had asked about having him, and unfortunately, Raphael's not well, and because he is part of, I think that certainly the '60s and that group around Jonas, and I know you've known him and Stone Soup as well, but I'm really happy that you did mention him. And he did know Steve very well. He doesn't go back to the '50s. Raphael was more part of the '60s, around when you probably started to meet Steve. Raphael had probably met him a year or two before that.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
He was an
It would have been
anarchist.
great if he could have been here tonight, unfortunately.
Raphael was a serious anarchist.
It's Bob.
Well, is there really a serious anarchist? I don't know.
Yes, Raphael is. Yes, there is. Um, But anyway, you mentioned, can I just
Oh,
ask,
yes,
Carol?
absolutely,
You
please.
mentioned your mother saw John Wieners read and said, who was that? I'm curious about who your parents were and where you grew up.
Yeah.
Is that,
Yeah.
am I allowed to?
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
you're,
Yeah.
please.
So I was sort of dedicating my reading partly to my parents, Carol Weston from Cambridge and Lydia from New Bedford. And I was born in Brookline. And, if I'm doing a dedication, excuse me, I also to Tilly, our friend from Ireland, whose birthday it is today.
Oh,
And
cool.
then John Galloway, who has been my guide for over 50 years. Okay, those are my dedications. Oh,
But
what
you
did
grew
ask
up in,
me?
I was asking
Oh.
how you grew up
Oh,
as
oh,
a child.
in,
where
yeah,
you
yeah, in
spent your-
Brookline, yeah,
Yeah.
in Brookline. There was some woods there, and I collected for a year scrap metal and stuff for the war effort. And the pile was enormous, and the work, every toy animal of mine was in charge of certain days and certain, and I had to keep notes on which one found the steel cable that went on for 50 feet. Well, when you pull it and the leaves are moving way across the woods, then you know you're powerful. Anyway, when it came time, it was only $15 that we received for all our work, and the pile was as high as this. Yeah.
Brothers and sisters? Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yeah. So my sister Lydia, who's no more, but she was a Russian scholar beyond a belief. Okay, she translated Gorky and Andreev and Tolstoy.
Tolstoy.
Really?
Yeah. And Gorky used some bad language. So Lydia didn't like bad language. So she went all the way up to Columbia and looked up and found the whole thing. Then she got home and forgot it. So then she had to walk all the way back to Columbia to find out what this bad language was that she was translating.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so Lydia, and then she taught at first at Vassar, then at Columbia, Barnard, and then Sarah Lawrence, and so Lydia was one thing. She was the angel of the family, and then came Emily, the rebel, and she threw the contents of her machinery box at the nurse, and Emily said, "I will not be pretty for anyone," and she was like 4 years old, sitting on Grandma Bullard's house steps in New Bedford, and Emily stuck to her guns, and so that was important to have that in the family. And then,
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. I was very fortunate to have those extraordinary sisters.
Fantastic.
Well, that helps to know someone.
Absolutely. Are there other questions? That
Mary,
we've-
do you want to?
Oh, the other woman from Stone Soup, Julie Stone, of course. She's very important to Stone Soup. Julie was here. Oh, she is. Well, she's another very important person. That woman from the '90s from
Yeah,
Stone Soup. So I wanted to mention Julie too. So
very important.
very important.
Julie Stone.
Yes.
She's in the audience
Yes,
tonight.
and welcome to Julie.
She's up there.
Oh,
Looks like Gloria has her hand up. Gloria, would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Yes, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
I just want to say, Julie, I remember you from Stone Soup, and you were an integral part of that and documenting all of that. And Carol, you definitely don't remember me, but we had
I'm
I mean,
sorry.
I don't think you remember me, Carol, but we had a poetry workshop with Raphael and Joe Dunn and yourself. And I met you at Stone Soup when I was at BC, and you carried a large rock up in my Alston apartment, three stories high. And I was so intrigued by all of you guys, but you said it, you were to be such a powerful presence. You set this rock down and you wrote this beautiful poem about like a car crash or rape or something happening to you that was really inevitable but impossible to fight. And I've always thought about this poem my whole life, and I just was so struck by your strength and your endurance and the vulnerability of that poem. And it wasn't a very long poem, it was a short poem, but it was very, very beautiful, Carol. Very beautiful. And I just want to say to you, thank you for being so brave in this. I mean, that when I saw you, that would have been like the 90s, but you had come up from, in my opinion, this patriarchy and, you know, these really interesting poets, but you were just so powerful. And I just want to say thank you.
Wow.
That's beautiful.
Hey, John, that somehow reminded me of that photo that you had of her at Walden. Was that related to Stone Soup? And
It was, yeah.
could we
Yeah.
look at that photo?
Yes.
I think it was 98. There was a Jack Powers reading it at Walden Pond, and there used to be a little natural amphitheater. There it is right there, and Carol showed up in a deer skin and with her face painted and gave it a stunning reading. Do you remember that reading, Carol? And it was really something else. And it was the deer skin of somebody you know who.
Yeah, my uncle, he was a hunter.
Do you remember what you read? That was a stunning reading. I just remember that it just blew me away at Walden there.
Wow. No.
Go ahead, picture.
Yeah. Yeah. So he did shoot everything, tigers and then very sadly, finally he shot himself because he knew so well how to do it. But I loved him.
Do you still have the deer skin?
The deer skin, yeah.
You do?
Yeah. So Julie Stone saw me trying to perform a play under the deer skin.
Oh, really?
And I didn't fit. And so you know what she did? She gave me a giraffe skin. And I was very sensible. I said, no. And then I said, but I had to do something at the school for retarded children, a performance. And I needed a skin. So I have a giraffe skin from Julie Stone.
Wow.
Some boy who admired her gave it to her.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. That is
Question in the chat from Fred. Fred, do you want to unmute yourself? And
I'm unmuted. Hi, Carol.
Who
Hi,
are you?
everyone. Thank you so much for this evening. Carol, yes, it's true. We Carol, for many years, we were moving actually through the 90s to the 2000s. In the late 90s and the 2000s, Carol was often, I mean, maybe every year, an important part of the William Joyner Center for the Study of War and Social Consequences workshops. And I just want to say that, I mean, I asked a question in the chat, would you say a few words about it? But I wanted to say a few words about you and how great and how wonderful and how inspiring a presence you were year in and year out at the Joyner Center. And would you say a few words about what that part of your life was like and what it meant to you as a writer?
Yeah. So it really is a joiner center. My God, it brought everything together. Well, even a playwright from Iraq. Is it Iraq? Iran? Iraq?
Yes.
And anyway, I mean, the Joiner Center brought everything together. May it live again.
Yes.
Good for Fred.
Oh, thank you so much, Fred. And one of the things I remember, one of the first things I noticed about you is that when I saw you at readings, you would always have those disposable cameras. And Derek Fenner has, I think, a question about that. Does Derek want to unmute? You out there?
Derek Fenner.
Sure, yes. Carol, what I wanted to say, I was just typing in the chat, is one part of Bootstrap Press. We've met so many times at different at Garrett's house and many other places. But
really?
It's one thing when Bootstrap first started, our dream was to publish a John Wieners book, but I'm starting to realize that our destiny was to publish a Carol Weston book. So we're so excited to publish your book. I know that you're working on it with Amanda. And I always remember that you're carrying around a camera at all times, taking pictures of everyone, and it just always made us feel like stars. So hopefully someday we can capture all those pictures and see them, because I know you've been taking them for a long time. So we're just really excited at Bootstrap to see your book into print this year.
Hopefully we can get
Thank
some
you,
of those
Carol.
pictures.
You're amazing.
Right. Yeah. There must be
good heaven.
must be a real treasure trove of the photos that you've taken at readings over the years.
Well, I'm glad to meet you.
Absolutely. Always.
Hey, Carol, there's an interesting question from Mary Bookinger about Mary, would you like to ask your question? And if she's no longer here, I'll ask it for her. She said she wanted to hear about your experience of hearing Dylan Thomas give a reading. Did that happen? And would it have been the reading, Fanny, that was to do with Poets Theater?
It would have been.
No.
That your mother helped to organize?
No.
Didn't he stop by your house too, Fanny? Well, we'll get
Well, that doesn't matter.
we'll get all that in.
No. I was a freshman at Bennington College, and let's see. So that's 53. 53.
He definitely came here in 53 because he gave a reading.
And so I was a freshman at Bennington College, and he came, and he read poems that he admired. And then he said, "Now I will dwindle into some poems of my own." Anyway, so the girls cornered him, all these freshmen and everything, cornered him around the piano, and he must have wanted to get out. Well, anyway, so Howard Nemerov did a terrible thing. He came and took Dylan Thomas away from us. And I felt so bad. And if I had a brain, I would have followed. But I didn't. So what I did was, there was an empty cup from his coffee. I lifted it up and drank the last bit of the cup, and it was sugar.
Oh, that is remarkable. That is fantastic.
I always tell everyone, go on eating sugar. You never know what's going to be in it.
It looks like Carol Blecker has her hand up, and then
maybe he'll start to get to the reading.
Oh, yeah, we have to read it.
Right.
There's a few questions.
Hi, I just want to say I've known Carol Weston since 1958, the minute I got born. She's my aunt and my godmother and my style icon and my inspiration. And
Oh,
I learned everything about, I mean, I probably like took the most beautiful photographs with those disposable cameras. And I remember being at her house as a little girl and a seashell full of raw sugar. I just had never seen anything
the
like it.
sugar.
And the poems that she wrote for us as children,
Really?
just like the one about your father, you said, my father told a story I didn't
Yes.
understand, and all I did was watch the pulse beat in
You
his
know that one?
Oh,
And I just want to say, this is
beautiful.
such a pleasure.
Wow.
I love that father poem.
Wow, indeed.
Wow, Carol.
Well, so I think, you know, one of the things we've discovered is that, you know, all roads lead to Carol. And if Dylan Thomas might dwindle into his own poems, but I think we could charge into your poems or go into that. Would you like to, as a way of going through, you know, wrapping up the evening, share a few poems with us?
Yeah. Let's see. So I better put down the time. Oh, anyway, I have this Immortal Poems of the English Language here. Well, it was given to me by Harris Gardner, which is good because my other one decayed. I mean, there nothing left of it. So thank God he gave me this. Now, I remember the day that I walked into Steve Jonas' house and I said, oh, I will show Steve my birthday present that I got today. And my birthday present was a book of extraordinary, actually, put together by Oscar Williams, the poetry editor in New York, who Lowell said was the finest poetry editor in America. And let's see, so I lost my track. Anyway, so I came in with this book that was printed after the death of, it has poems and essays on them by poets, and it's a big book. And so I came in and to show Steve my birthday present, he said, take that poison out of here. I should have explained, but this is my birthday present, and I just got it. But anyway, I didn't. And so excuse me, that's why Steve is there, and I mean why Oscar is there. Now, wait a minute. Oh, I'm supposed to read this. Now, Christina, by mistake, gave my poem a much better title than it had. So I'm improving my poem, which was published in Bomb magazine 1992. I'm Itinerant Beast. Oh, wow. Thank you.
What the original title was.
Oh, it was an individual beast, you see. It's absolutely
like
nothing.
individual beast, but
So, individual beast. You derive like, okay, Jack Powers was incredible. And what he did was he he decided to have all the ministers of the different parts of the government together, and that remarkable woman who started Rosie's Place, that remarkable woman. Yeah. Well, anyway, so she was minister of something or other, and Jack was minister of something or other. I was minister of the environment, and we were all minister of something. And so that's why this peculiar poem, which nobody would know, but who read Bomb magazine would ever know what it was about. Individual beast, you derive, like all of us, from Eosphera and her kind. One-celled, neither plant nor animal, male nor female, I of the first life in the waves, floating 3.5 billion years ago, north of Lake Superior. I, minister of the interior, in charge of earth and outer space, defend you. Oh. So this is a little poem. When John and I went hiking, we were always coming back in the dark. Something strange about it, but it was always true. The walking stick to John Galloway, my husband, poet and professor of astronomy and cosmology. At home, at one, in woods we wander, the walking stick guiding us through branches, along paths, along ridges of mines. We lie through scared nights, our breaths drawn up into starlight. Thank you, John. I think we've done this. So what we're going to do next. Anyway, we've done Leonardo. I think we did it, so we don't have to do that.
Well,
No.
we didn't do all of it, but
Uh-huh.
but whichever
Yeah.
whichever you'd like
Yeah.
to read.
And yeah, so. Oh, my oldest ancestor. Oh, but I don't have a poem on him. But anyway, I have lots of them all over the house, but I don't have. My oldest ancestor that I sort of know about was Edmund Gardner in Nantucket, 1784. He got himself caught in the jaws of the whale, and the tooth went through his skull and through his hand and through his tongue. And anyway, so he went on. well, he got rescued. By crossing. Oh, well, they came in and to give him the blessing of his death, but he didn't die because he said, "I know about this was off Peru that it happened." And Linda Crane says that she's a healer. She was a healer. So she said, he made the decision in the whale's mouth to live. Just think, if you were in the whale's mouth, would you make that decision? Anyway, so he lived to be 90. So that's my oldest ancestor. Muriel Rukeyser, I have a wonderful quote that's lost about changing conditions. I'll tell you when I find it.
We'll be looking forward.
I've been looking for it for years. Yeah, at her funeral, at her service, there was that quote. Oh God, so beautiful. Okay, and this one you know. The rocket. I am a rocket shooting up. Who will I be when I come down? That's one of the nursery rhymes that we were going to make a book when her daughter was 12, and then I guess I got depressed or something, and that was the end of the book. Anyway, I look at my watch. My darling time, you are eating me alive, and I love it. Now, this is when I was 16, age 16. Under the tiny golden circle of my mouth, clenched teeth, a tongue of fire. When I was 16, I guess for the better or for worse, I started to scream. I would scream and fall, my heart beating thunderously. And, well, they didn't know what to do. But Bennington College accepted me. Can you believe it? And, they weren't afraid of somebody who screamed. And so that's, and that place, my God, it was made for human beings to grow. Anyway, so I left and... So my book is titled Let Me Lie Down with the lightning. I lie down with the lightning and suck the nectar and ambrosia of other worlds. And I've got a fantastic thing that I couldn't find, which is sort of the mythology of ambrosia. Oh my God! Wait till you hear it. Okay, so now this is my poem to Garrett. To Garrett. What is it about this man of magic? He flows with the tides, keeps in touch with the moon, knows the lives of the creatures, the books of the alchemists, rises at dawn. And this person here on my left had a dog named Coco. This is what Coco did. It's sad. I apologize. Coco, with utter faith, you crossed the living room floor, wagging your tail to greet your old friend Garrett asleep on the sofa. You sniff, your tail drops. Garrett is gone from inside himself. Now, Linda Crane had a, I met her because there was a sign on the wall and it said there was an apartment. Well, so she helped me move in where I lived anyway, so Linda Crane and Kelly came to visit. He said, "What is that?" And he pointed to a sign that said UFO on the door. What is that? So this is to Linda Parker Crane, Zen Buddhist and leader of shamanic journeys. And it's the shortened version because I've lost the longer version. Linda, on your 23rd birthday, you threatened to pull the telephone out of the wall, and you put your foot into your birthday cake. At 46, with cancer unknown in your body, you crawled across the floor in a bear skin. The bear, your shamanic, your power animal. Your shamanic journeys touched 1,000 lives. The deer of your being dance through the wolves of your death. Okay. Not everybody thinks this is true science, but I do. Spark, you seized prehistory by the scruff of the neck. My name is Care All Quest On. I am born of lightning 3.5 billion years ago today, starting with the first cell upon the waters. I am primordial. I live on the land before there were names, the supercontinent Pangea. Every form of life that ever lived lives in my body. I am exhausted as my breathing moves the mountains of my mind. I move with love for all the forms of life inside me. Oh, and we've done this one, so it's not bad. And we've done this one, and is that it? Yeah. Well, oh no, did I do the one to John? I did. No, I didn't. Yes.
Yeah, you did.
Filled with love for all beings.
Yeah. You see, now, I think it's Ernst Haeckel that agrees with me. Apparently, he's very out of date, I am informed. And I adore him.
That's
Haeckel?
absolutely wonderful.
Haeckel, Haeckel, yeah. Oh, and an artist out of this world. And he lives, and so I have to look him up right away to find out about him.
Well, I'm sure that there's some people who are will be dying to look you up. Carol, thank you so much for sharing those poems.
Wow.
Are we and to everybody here on the panel, to Joe, and to everybody who was able to be here, check in. Christina, if you have words about programming here at the Woodbury, thank you to the Woodbury.
Done for the year. This is it. We are going to
this is the punctuation, right? Yeah.
We did want to invite people to unmute their mics and just say hello and thank you to Carol, or give a blessing, or
Yes, please.
please unmute, because Carol can see the screen. In fact, we'll show her the screen.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Carol.
Hi, Carol. Love you.
Hi, Carol. Thank you.
Hi, Carol. Fantastic.
God bless you.
Lydia. Thank you.
Hey, Carol.
You
are loved.
Thank you, Carol.
Hey, Carol.
Hey,
Carol.
Thank you, Carol. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Oh,
Amazing, Carol. Amazing job.
Beautiful.
I
Carol,
need
it's
your name.
Lydia.
You are loved.
Love you.
Oh my God.
And you are loved.
That's another nephew, I mean niece.
Bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo.
You, Carol.
We love you.
Thanks, Carol.
Thank you,
Thank you, Carol.
There you are.
Oh,
This is Jack.
Thank
I'll
you.
see you soon.
Jack. Oh no,
Jack
Jack
Frankovich.
Frankovich. Thank you, Jack Weston.
Okay, I'm coming.
Thanks, Carol. Julie.
Thanks.
Been too long.
Hey, Julie.
Oh no. Oh,
Thank you, Carol.
incredible
Thank you.
picture.
Thank you, Carol. It's Lydia Frankovich.
Wow, that's amazing, amazing.
Thank
Hi,
you,
Carol. David Miller. Hi, Carol.
Hi.
It's Mary Jennings. Hello, Carol.
Rod Zimmerman. To you.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
Wow. Wow.
Jennifer.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, Carol.
Thank you, Carol.
Gregory.
Thank you, Carol.
Martha, thank you.
Mary Buchinger says hello.
Who is that?
It's
Mary Buchinger.
Oh, hi.
Thank you, Carol.
Wow.
Carol, you don't know. Thank.
Go ahead.
Everyone's being so polite.
Carol, it's Lydia Frankovich. Thank you.
Yes. Amazing.
Carol, you don't know me, but I've seen you read a few times and you've touched many people's lives more than you'll ever know.
What is your name?
Julie Marie Hoey. So thank you very much.
Wait a
Carol,
minute.
this is Edward Galt. You knew my wife, Karen, and my daughter, Cosette, a while back in Boston.
Oh my God, yeah, I want to find out about her.
And I would like to thank you so much for your friendship over the years. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Carol.
God.
Carol, you truly influenced my life and my writing from the very first
You.
time that I've ever seen you.
Who are you?
This is
You
Cece.
don't. What?
Cece Arshagra.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
He's different from he was 20 years ago.
Imagine that.
Oh, who's that? Who is that?
Can you give her the name at the end?
I understand.
See her name.
My battery is low.
Okay, you can plug it in.
Anna Warwick. Oh, Anna Warwick. Good Lord.
How are you doing, Carol? Good to see you. Good to hear you.
Oh, who's that?
Anna.
Oh, Anna Mark. Yeah, yeah. You know, you and I mean, I don't know. You talked about a robin's egg or something, and we had, when I had my book, my first book, you came. Thank you very much for coming to that.
It's a lovely book. Galaxy.
Carol, it's so wonderful to see you. It's Lydia.
Yes. Yeah. Well, wonderful to hear you.
Yes.
They're disappearing.
We usually play music at the end, but I think Carol is her own music, so I think we might call it an evening. But thank you all so much for making this such a beautiful evening, and to Carol.
Yes.
I think I want to thank the Poetry Room on behalf of everyone, if I may, for recognizing and acknowledging this amazing woman who has given her life and her words to us for so many years below the radar of, being recognized, but just being herself. What an achievement.
Oh, that's so nice.
Thank
Good
you.
God.
It's a privilege of our position to be able to do this.
Wow.
Carol was the first person to welcome me to the Poetry Room.
Was she?
So I am indebted to her.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't.
On that note, I think we will bid you all good night.